All right, good morning. This is part two of managing the exercise for the exercise design course. So, when we left off on the last part one, we were talking about, your plan B. And let's get started on video two here with a discussion on the exercise assistant, the role of the exercise assistant, the importance of the exercise assistant, and sort of some of their responsibilities during an exercise. So, something you might not think about. This is why you have somebody who's sort of assigned to think about some of these things. Is in an attempt to sort of create realism, one of the things that I like to do, and your text encourages, is that you want to make sure that your clocks inside the exercise sort of play area are set to the exercise time. And so one of the things the exercise assistant does is go around and make sure all those clocks are set to the time that you're going to be talking about in your exercise. I know this seems sort of minute, right? And why bother? But everything you can do to add some level of realism to your exercise, it helps. The exercise assistant checks in with the facilitator frequently. They want to know, hey, what can I do? How do I make this thing flow better or flow more smoothly? They play the media as needed. So if we've got a video that we want to show, they're the person who keys that in, either at the direction of the facilitator, or they're following that measle that says at this particular time, this particular thing is done. They're the people who may hand out pertinent documents. This just came in hot off the press. Here's a newspaper article. Scribes during the debriefing, they're going to be taking notes to make sure that this the learning actually was captured. And they help with other tasks as assigned by the facilitator. There might be exercises where the facilitator is running around like a crazy person, but in other times they're not going to have much to do, because if things sort of run smoothly, there's not a lot of sort of putting out the little fires. So there are times when the exercise assistant ends up doing other things, right? What about the sim team? They deliver injects on time. Be efficient in inject delivery, right? You're gonna want to make sure that this gets to the people. So if you're realizing that they're not answering phone calls, you probably have to figure out another way to get it to them. Follow up on calls not being returned and issues not being resolved. Remember, what we're trying to do is close loops, right? The functional exercise is all about closing loops. So we challenge the players with something. If they do it, then we have to record that to show that, look, they encountered an objective, and then they actually solved the problem, and we have to record that somewhere as the sim team. Keep other sim team members informed of status. One of the things I like to do is, and we're becoming more digital, so we're putting it on computers and stuff. I like to have chart paper on the wall, and I like to have the exercise assistant chalking those things up. And so from a quick glance, I can see, are we moving people through the exercise? Are they meeting the objectives? Are they encountering them and meeting them? Keep sim team scribe informed. If the exercise assistant is scribing inside the sim cell, you want to make sure that they know, hey, this particular loop is closed, so they can write it up on the board. Your evaluator, controller, and even observers, they need to listen and pay attention, right? Keep the facilitator informed of what's going on. Keep notes on evaluator, observer, controller form. Those will all be supplied to you. The HC forms, there is documents for everything, including sort of the expectations of the evaluator, observer, and controllers. And finally, right at the starting line, what happens, right? Once everything is assembled and it's good to go, over the rules one last time, right? Remind them that not to fight the narrative. Imagine that this has really happened. Tell them to just close your eyes for a second. Think about this as really happening in your community. This is a learning experience. This isn't an opportunity or a chance to take out, anger or something on somebody. This is an opportunity for us all to learn how to do this better. If you remember, very recently we hosted a pod exercise at the university. Many of you were involved in it or played in it, that you were there. How cool that everyone sort of approached that in a learning sort of manner. And now guess what? I would imagine that there is a very high likelihood that Pickaway County will stand up a pod at some point to push out medicines or vaccines, hopefully. But how neat that this is something that was perfected, or at least semi-perfected, on our campus, and it was written by one of our students, John Sieber. Plan brief, you're going to want to, once the ground rules have been covered, distribute the plan and review the document. This is for all the players too, right? Don't skim through this, but take the time to cover it completely. I have a PowerPoint sort of presentation of all this, and I don't remove and replace a lot of stuff because I want to make sure that all of the sort of information that I want to push out to them, you know, when we're talking about what to remind them, I have a slide of that I put in every presentation. So if you're using audiovisual, it might be a good time to start with this, right? So when you're ready to get started, you know, play your audiovisual. I sometimes like to put in a video sort of announcing, maybe the national media is announcing, you know, Godzilla has attacked or something like that. It will help set a realistic tone, you know, for me to just go, okay, the exercise has begun, and I start to, you know, read from my paper. You know, or if I just go, okay, exercise, you know, start X, and I hit a button, or the assistant hits the button, and it plays this video saying, oh, this is happening, you know, run for the hills, that sort of stuff. The heavy lifting is over for the preparation of the exercise. Hopefully you've got it in a position where it just sort of rolls out, because now's the time to sort of sit back and just watch how it proceeds. Keep your fingers crossed that you somehow didn't miss something, because I have watched, thank goodness I've never run into the problem personally, but I have watched exercises come to a screeching halt because they didn't do a good job in the preparation stages, and I watched a fire chief walk up to the front of the room and say, tick, 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 problem solved. This was 15 minutes into the exercise, so now what? About halfway through the exercise, or when you feel that you've moved through a substantial piece of the material, you're going to want to do a check-in, right? Are the injects going out as scheduled? Are we behind time? Are we sort of ahead of time? You might have to keep reminding yourself and others why you're doing the exercise. People tend to sort of go off track. Your job as a facilitator is to keep them moving in the direction that you want them to go. If they start to get off track, all you may have to do is remind them that is not something we're looking at. The objectives that we're trying to peer at are right here. Interact with these. Don't get off in the weeds somewhere. So this is going to end our second video for this section. I should be able to finish the rest of it in the third. We'll see, but you know, go through this one. This should take you up through about slide 20, 19 or 20, and then from that point we will we should finish up in video 3. So strap in, hold on, watch the next video, video 3. See you in a minute.